There was no sound. I forgot to put the sound back on. So, welcome. Uh, you'll have watched this video now and you'll go, there's no sound, Shauna. I forgot to put the sound on. Welcome to this week's Thursday Painting with Shauna Live for 1 hour. Last week, if you watched the video, you would have seen that this owl became very distorted when I was drawing it, because I was drawing from the side, you're looking straight on, and I'm drawing from the side, and that distortion actually is as a result of me not seeing it at the right angle. So I've decided from this point on, I will draw the painting out beforehand so we don't have to deal with that distortion. In the 16th century, Hans Holbein had done this amazing painting called The Ambassadors, and in there he has this long shape that you kind of like, what is that? And as you move right, if you ever get to go to London, England again after COVID, and go to the National Art Gallery, go and stand in front of it. It's a huge, gorgeous painting. And as you go around the right, that long shape becomes more and more accurate looking, and until you realize it's an actual skull, and everything else then in the painting is distorted because you're looking at it right from the edge of the painting. Now, my distorted owl from last week, that was not going to get corrected by moving around it. So I corrected it, and let's get going. Okay, so I thought we'd start with the eyes today and focus in on those. And once we get those going, then we will, then we will move on out. So you can see that I've got some of this patterning done, and I'm quite pleased with how it's done. I still have some more sort of just little tweaks to do to sort of give that sense of the feathers moving, radiating out away from the owl's eyes. But, you know, I've got the general placement. I'm happier now without the distortion. It's a much better painting as a result. So let's get going on the eyes. So the one eye here is getting a lot of light, and so I'm going to put in, the lightest part is right in here, and then I'm going to put in a little darker next to it, because what I want to do is give the idea that the owl's eyes are round, which they are, you know, a sphere inside their skull. Okay. And then I see that there's a darker edge here. And it comes here. Oops, I need some more water on there. There we go. What's interesting is the highlight is still in this area up here, which I find quite intriguing. Now I'm focusing first on the eye, and then I will come back and I will correct around the eye, where the dark around the eye, to make it get that shape as it's rounding this way. And I can see that it's a little bit lighter as it goes towards. I'm just going to add a little bit more light as it comes towards the top part. So it's still catching some light there. Yeah, let's see if we have a different brush that would be easier to work with. Let's see what I think of this one. Okay. Okay, I'm going to need to get some more paint on here. So yellow is an interesting color to work with. It's a bit of a challenge to work with because you can't, darkening it down requires using a combination for this one of raw umber and burnt umber 50-50 and bringing it down to the value that I'm looking for. Hi, Stephen. Thanks. I realized when I looked down that I had not put the mic on. I like it to be quiet when I first get on. Okay. So I'm going to stand back so I can see what's happening. And I'm liking that, but I think, well, that was not right. I forgot to put out one color here. So let's get that out. Need a little bit of darker gray for the pupil of the eye so that I can get it in the correct place. And it's bigger than I've got it right now. There. Okay, stepping back and looking. Okay. Let's get the other eye in place and let that dry because I can see it needs a little bit of drying time. Okay, so this eye on this side is darker. It's completely in shadow. It's not going to get any light at all, though there is some variation once we get it put in place where we can come in and play with a little bit of reflected light that is coming off the feathers. Okay, I'm going to bring that down. And I like that little touch of light because we want it to look like it's a sphere in the head of the owl. Just clean off my brush, dry it off, put a little bit more paint on it, pull it in and soften it. I'm just going to cover that pupil and replace it here in a minute. So it's finally getting nice and Yellowknife. We are going to make it to 15 degrees Celsius today. I think what I'm noticing in the picture is the pupil that is in the shadow and is larger than the pupil that's not. I hadn't noticed that before. Okay, so let's get that in place and that in place. And I'm happy with that. I think that looks like it's looking where it's supposed to be looking. Yeah. Okay. Now this is probably dry enough I could start working again on it. So I'm going to bring in the lightest part. And what I'm working towards on this one now is getting to the point where I can put that little bit of highlight in place. I didn't put any highlight stuff out either. That's just not well planned. I'm just looking at something here and realizing I hadn't started it. There we go. So let's put a little bit of white out onto the palette. It would be actually helpful. Someday I will get that other camera and then you can watch my palette and my brush and what I'm doing, but I'm not quite there yet. It's going to be a while. Maybe in the fall after my show. Okay, so I've got the light there. And I want to bring in that little bit of darker yellow that I created. And sort of dance it between the two. So I'm going to dry my brush off and soften the edge between the two of them so that it gives that sense of roundness as it moves away from. And we're gonna bring a little bit of darker in here. Spritz my paint. You know, that's a good idea to do when you're working with little bits of acrylic, is to spritz it regularly. Clean my brush off. So how are you doing today, Stephen? Okay, I'm happy with that. Bring that in and darken it. Careful around the pupil. And I see that there's that, just at the top of that eyeball, there's a little bit of light getting in there, right in here. Now the shape will be made a little smaller because they are a little large right now. I did that on purpose. And I'm just going to pull that, push the paint around. Take some of the darker and push it into that plate, into that lighter area to soften and okay. Need to pull my image a little closer so I can see more. Okay. Now there's this interesting lighter area in here, but it's not super light like the it's not super light, it's just a little bit of reflected light. Again, that gives that sense of it being more of a rounded object. Okay, and a little lighter here. I'm going to take a little bit and move it around. Clean up the edge. And dry my brush off to move that paint around a little bit. And it comes around a little bit more. Just pull it in. Okay. So far, I'm kind of liking that. I'll take a little bit of darker. Okay. I'm seeing, I just put a little bit more darkness in here to just see where we're at there and pull it down. I just want to just bounce it in a little bit. I don't want a ton of that darkness in there, but I just want a little bit of that to bring that shape around. Okay, now we're going to move over to the other eye. Well, you know what? I think what we could do is let's put the highlight that's in here. It's not that bright. It's not pure white. So I'm going to bring that value down a little bit with a little bit of gray. And it's a kind of a square shape. It's not a round shape. So I'm going to just carefully put that in. I'm looking back and forth between the picture and... Okay, I like that. Okay, so let's keep going here. So the other side is the darker yellow because it's in the shade, like it's not getting any direct light. So we're gonna, and then we're gonna take this darker even and put it down in here to give that sense of the shape of the eye. And it comes around here. And it comes around here, on all the way around the eye. Yeah, I'll just do that. I'm gonna clean my brush, dry it off, and just very gently, gently, gently mix the two paints together. If you do it soon enough with acrylic, you can do this, but you just have to be doing it right from, okay. And I've lost the edge that I was liking so much. So let's bring a little bit more dark. Okay, there we go. And I'm seeing just a touch more light. Spritz my paint. I'm going to just say a little bit here, just to give it some dimension. Drying my brush off so that it's just damp and pulling it down. Okay, bring that darker in and just meet it around it there. Okay, I think I'm pleased with that. You know, if you're not actually really sure if you're pleased with something, the secret is take a picture of it. And then you can see if it's doing what you want it to do. Sometimes you just can't get far enough away to see if it's doing what you want it to do. Okay. We can come back to that when in a few minutes. Here, let's add some of the darkness in. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Yes. Okay. Just put that over here. Keep spritzing it. Okay. Let's add some of that darkness in. And I'm looking at the shapes that I'm seeing, and I'm just going to put it in kind of tentatively because I don't want to be too exuberant with it. Take some of the paint off and put it on the back of my hand. That helps me manage how much paint I have on my brush so that I can come in and be timid with it. It's a pretty dark area around the eye. And it kind of comes out a little bit more. And then around here. And around here. And it comes sort of here. And just take some concentration and moving slowly because I don't really want to move too quickly. I'm going to come and correct this shape here in just a second. I'm just going to get my Dakota, my Princeton Dakota flat. This is a number 2, and it's my favorite go-to brush, so that I can push paint around and put it where I need it to put. So I clean it off, I dry it off, and I just keep on moving. Keep moving it. Now I'm going to stand back and see if I've got that shape correct. I can still see that this side here comes out even more. I'm just going to put it in place. And then I'm going to step back and see how much more I need it to be. Okay. It must be. I checked my speeds today, but it seems that my internet is being choppy. Let's hope that corrects itself. Okay, so getting that shape. Okay, and I see that there's a little... Okay. Now I'm going to come and I'm going to work on this shape in here. Just gently. I don't want to damage the paint that's underneath because it's not completely dry, but it's dry enough to be able to push the wet paint back. Okay. Bring that in a little bit more. There. I think I like that shape. It comes in and darkens right in there. Okay, let's work on the left eye. And see where we can get to on this one. I'm looking back and forth between the image. They do look rather fierce, don't they? With the way their eyes are. I am having problems today again. Huh. Well, there you go. I'm coming around to about there. Take my Princeton and thin it out because it needs to flatten out a little bit and thin out to the edge. And bring it around there. Okay, and then there's a lighter brown here as it comes down because of course it's capturing the light, and it comes right about here. And we're going to bring it, it's probably too far, but no, it shouldn't be too bad. Look at it. I will break it up a little bit because it's not so solid at the edge. And we're just going to come and tidy up this line here because I don't want it to be... Okay, look at that. Now I can come back in with that highlight and put another layer on it. Ooh, a little bit too much paint on my brush. Clean my brush off and then I can just move that little bit of paint around. So what do you think? Starting to look like eyes of an owl? Okay. Actually, I think I'm pretty pleased with that. I will darken this one as I go along, but this one over here I'm going to start to work on darkening. There we go. So in today's newsletter, which went out today because, yes, long weekend, kind of messed up. I had a busy week this week, and I just sort of got a little bit behind on my newsletter, but it went out today, and there are pictures of the very first time that I saw an owl after living in Yellowknife for almost 30 years. I had no idea that there were owls around Yellowknife like that. And so if you're interested in more pictures and more stories, my newsletter has that. Sorry, I have to stop and concentrate every once in a while. So you can just go to my website, dancingravenstudio.ca, or just type in my name and you'll find my website. It's the first thing that comes up. And you can sign up for my weekly newsletter. It's not a very long newsletter, but it gives you way more photos. I don't put my photos out into the world at all. And I purposely do that because I'm working all the time for my photos, and I don't really want to put them out into the world other than finished paintings. Okay, so now I'm going to get my detail one, and I think what I'm going to work on next is this area here for a little bit and just finalize around the eye a little bit more. I'm very pleased with how that eye has turned out. Yeah, it's turned out great. So let's see what we can do here. Spritz everything again. And I'm going to come and I'm just going to put these little thin lines in place so that you know that the feathers are radiating away from the eye. And it's just a nice, slow, methodical way of working. And it gives me a chance to come in and see where I can work on the shapes that are here and create that illusion of the feathers moving away and radiating around that parabolic sort of shape that owls have. Okay, a little darker. So I'm just going back and forth to my palette with my nice tiny little brush and bringing in paint. And I can see that I can bring it down a little bit more. And that little brush gives me such control at this point. And I'm going to come and I'm just going to radiate the lines out. And I can see I can radiate some lines here for the sort of eyebrows, if you would, the little white tufts that's in between. And I'm going to bring in some of the lighter color and just looking at back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I keep moving my eyes back and forth. I don't, it's so easy to get to just painting and you get into your zone and you actually forget to look. So my eyes are always going back and forth, so that I can capture what I'm seeing and I don't get lost in just the rhythm of painting, which is so easy to do. So I see that I'm going to bring this darker line here and make it a more solid line. Yeah, right there. And it comes right there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And bring it a little darker, put a little bit more paint in that area. Okay. The birds are the wading birds should be here shortly, and I'm going to be excited to go and see them. I'm hoping to get out tomorrow or tonight to do that. Go and check and see if they're here. I've been out sporadically. I haven't been out consistently this year, but I've had other things happening. So, you know, life is like that. Okay, I'm thinking about this shape here. Oops, I got too dark a color on my brush. So I'm going to just take my little piece of paper towel and pull that away. Yeah, there we go. We'll get the lighter value on again. And I'm back and forth looking at this beautiful area here. So I'm going to come in and I'm just touching all of this. I'm looking to see where is the shape, where, and I know that this is a little dark, but that's fine. I can come in and lighten that up by just putting some paint over top. The joys of acrylic. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. So every week I do this, partially because it gets me into a routine. And the other part is that I'm hoping that you enjoy what you're learning here. And it helps me to clarify how I'm teaching and thinking about, you know, what I'm doing. Often when you're alone just working, your poor brain just sort of settles into its mode. It's kind of like, I guess it's kind of like running. You know, if you're a runner, you know that you just kind of get into a mode and you just continue on, and you don't have to do much thinking. It just happens. Pull that down here and pull this down. Put a little bit of darkness in here. And we're just working on building in towards the bridge of this. And I'm going to stand back. I see where I'm at. Okay. And I can see that I have these shapes here just a little dark. So I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on, clean off my brush, and lighten those up. Okay. Look at how much that eye is coming. So let's put some little feathery hairs here where the light is being captured by the feathers. And I see there's some here as well. Ha! Thanks, Patty. Nice to see you here. Okay. Now I have to think about where that light is because it's not all the way. It's just at the start point here as I'm thinking about the feathers and how they're radiating. How's it down there in BC, Patty? Okay, and then when I come around this corner, I'm going to still put some light in, but not as light as what I've put in here. So darken that down a little bit more. And there. We're going to build that, build that, build that, build that. Soften that edge, make that. Okay. Oh, yeah. You know, you put the eye in and you start to put these little details in, and all of a sudden it's really starting to move and look more realistic. I love when I get to the little brushes. Rainy but green. Oh, We could really use some rain. We had a little bit of rain last night, but we didn't have very much. I think we could use more. Though we have a lot of water in our lakes, it's pretty crazy how high the water is this year. Nice and carefully looking, thinking about what I'm seeing, radiating. Okay. Oh, I see that's a shape that's actually broken up. So let's break that up a little bit just by adding a little bit of paint in between and then putting paint on each side of it. You get to this point, you're really looking closely. You're seeing things that you didn't maybe notice when you first started to paint. Because when you first start to paint, I use the big brush, and I'm really wanting just to get the shapes in place and get things in place. And then I might go to a slightly smaller brush to put some details in. But when I get to this brush, which is a Princeton Liner Mini Detailer, it's a number 1. Oh yeah, I'm happy. I love the little brushes. They make me very happy. I know that they make other people less happy, but that's all right. Okay, so I'm going to come out here. Where is the other places I'm seeing that light that I'm seeing in here? I'm seeing some of it here, so let's put some of that there. And we're going to just gently touch. And that might be still too light. So let's darken that down. On my palette, I have a number of values of the same color for this so that I can go back and forth with greater ease and get what I'm looking for value-wise. So here, it comes up into here, and I see a little bit of this area here is capturing the light and is lighter. And down here, what's interesting is because they're feathers, you know, they're not smooth feathers. Owls have roughly edged feathers, which is why they're silent when they're oh yeah, there we go. And let's get a little bit more this light in here. So their feathers are not smooth like you would see on ravens or on the ptarmigans. The ptarmigan feathers quite smooth. They're much darker, and this they're much rufflier, so they're rougher. So they don't really. Okay, I'm looking here. Come in, and I see this little shape. What is it about a painting when you put the eyes in? How it really comes to life when you get the eyes in and that little bit of highlight. It's quite fascinating. Okay, so I'm going to put some of that darker in here. Thinking about that radiating shape as I'm working, because we want to get this area to start to look like it belongs. Yeah, and there. Okay. So should we go to the beak? I'm not even sure I have beak colors, but I can make beak colors. I can just wing it. Let's get this. Okay. Let's get that beak in there and see what we think of that. Finalize that shape. And then I can put, because you can see the feathers go over top of. Now I want some light in there. Let's get some light. Okay. I'm still using this little wee brush. I probably could go to a slightly larger one, but right here now I think this is going to do what I need it to do. Now the beak is in light. Push that down. In light on one side, of course. So let's get that a little lighter and with more of the yellow on the one side. Yeah, there we go. Now we're going to soften that edge because it's not that hard of an edge. So we just soften that edge by just touching it and blending it in with this Princeton Dakota. I love how stiff it is, and it holds its shape really nicely. I had another flat that I was working with last night, and it had lost its shape completely. What do we think? We need a little darker on the one side. So I'm going to bring in some of this and darken it up. Now it's not wildly darker, but it is darker. So I'm just going to grab some of that, some of this, and see where we're at. Darken this one side, and again I'm going to do pretty much exactly what I did with the other side. I've got the line, clean my brush, dry it off, and then I'm just going to come in and soften that edge by just touching. And I'm hoping my head's not in the way of the camera as I'm working. Okay, and let's get that lighter area again. Bring it lighter, and another layer of light so that it stands out more. Okay. And then take that Dakota brush and just soften the edge. Pull. Okay. I can see that it comes out a little bit more. What do we think? Think that's good? I see that I'm still... Okay. I'm liking that. We have 26 minutes left, and let's just keep going. I'm gonna work on this area here over top of, well, I should probably give it a minute to completely dry. So let's work back up in here and see what damage we can do to it. Okay, thinking about those radiating lines. Radiating out. Darker, lighter, you know, because the light is being captured in different ways on this owl's face. Okay, there we go. I'm liking that. I'm seeing, I don't want to get it too dark, so let's put some of the medium value in just to sort of soften those edges. And I'm radiating out, so I'm actually moving my hand in that way so that it looks like, oh, a little bit too much paint on there. So I'm just moving my hand so that I'm anchored in the center and I'm moving. Okay, now let's bring a little light into that area because I see that I've gone a little dark, but I don't want it too, I want that modeliness to be there too. So the big thing you have to work on when you're doing this is not to be too rhythmic, because it's very easy to go line, 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 and not look as natural as it should look, as the actual animal is. We like our rhythms. We like our little, make it all look even and the same. And okay. And I see that there's a little bit of light captured here as well. And now that I have my hand on the beak and it's not rubbing off, we could probably work over there. Okay, what do we think? It's coming. I will spend hours doing this part, because it's the part that to me makes it come alive and look like what I want it to look like. Okay, so let's work into this area here. We're going to start with the darker, because I can see that there's some darker in beside. So and it's not darker over top, so we're going to be careful not to go over top of. Go darker yet as we go down. We want to keep that beak shape there. We will go over top with the lighter here in a bit. Okay, standing back, looking at it. Okay, I think let's just go a little bit a lighter value to come down in here and bring the feathers down here. Okay. And I'm backing up and I'm looking, and I'm moving my eyes between the two images, the iPad with the owl on it, and okay. Now I'm going to put that light shape in there, because I see that it needs to be in here a little bit more. It's not hugely light. Okay. Okay. We have 20 minutes left here. So not hugely light, but I want that shape in here so that I know that I've got sort of this mustachy look to it. And I can move this paint around, and in fact my Dakota brush might be the perfect way to get that shape in place. And then I will go back and look and see if I like it in where it's at. And it's not very light. I started off way too light, so let's darken that up. That value, bring that value down. Oh, thanks, Stephen. I will put the little thing at the end that says it's royalty-free music. So I thought I would add it in so that when I concentrate and I forget to talk, at least you have something to listen to. Because painting is a lot of concentration, and talking and painting is kind of interesting. Okay, so I need darker yet. All right, back to the darker here. Bring that shape down. So I'm just building up these shapes here so that I can make sure that where I'm going, you know, if I get this shape correct and these shapes in here correct, then when I come back to place the feathers that are on top, right on top, then they'll be in the right place, and I know that I'm not, they can go over this and it's not a problem. And let's build this up. Build this up. Okay. And then I'm going to take that darker and I'm going to reshape it because I didn't have the angle quite right. Now, I'm hoping that I don't have a whole lot of distortion like I did last week. Oh my gosh. When I came downstairs and looked at this owl, I thought, okay, that's not going to work. Let's do that. Get that shape in there. Yeah, okay. Okay, back and forth, back and forth. The other thing that will help this shape is putting in the white mustache for any other lack of, yes, I don't know. I'm just going to put this shape in because again, that helps me to know that I'm in the right direction and I'm. So this is a dance of going back and forth and looking and moving and coming forward and correcting, especially at this point. Now, I just got paint over where I don't want the paint. So I'm going to take my Dakota Princeton and I'm just going to move it away. I don't want it there, and I might want it there, but I don't want it there right now. Okay. And there's going to be subtlety to this too. It comes around here. Let's back up and look. It comes down. Okay. And I don't want to spend too much time worrying about this. I'm just trying to get that shape in because I can see that underneath I have to finalize this whole area before I can actually finalize this area. But this is all working towards understanding what I'm seeing and how I want to portray it. And then we have some light in here and darker just to give it a sense of. Okay, so let's move back up into here and let's see what we can do for giving that the sense of feathers and the sense of them coming over. Now I'm thinning out my paint quite a bit. And I do that in two ways. I have some water, but I also have some airbrush medium that I use to help thin out as well. And I'll put that in a cap, which I didn't do today, but I often put it in a cap so that I can just grab a little bit and with the paint and it helps to thin out the paint without, and still helps with the molecular bonding of the paint. So looking at what's coming up. So I'm looking from underneath. I'm looking from underneath to the top. I want to get some of that slightly darker value that I see underneath. And I'm going to start to build in the feathers. Try to be as random as they look here. And my eyes keep going back and forth. Now I'm going to bring a slightly lighter value. And as I bring the lighter value, make sure I don't have too much paint on my, and then I can bring it in, oops, thin it out a little bit more. That first, when you first get the blob of paint, if you put it on your hand and just remove a little bit, don't you know, wipe it down. Don't keep it on your hands because I'm not sure how, okay. And I see that the feathers start to move this direction. So they're moving here and then they're moving like they're moving out and radiating. Okay, now I can go to the next layer value. Adding water, thinning it out. Taking a little bit off just the end, and then building up. Looking at the feathers. And I can see I can come up higher now. And come down and into here. Yeah. And remember that it radiates out in a very specific pattern. Okay, next value up. Let's go and add a little bit of water, make it nice and thin so I can clean off the tip so that it is ready to and now look at that. We have just tweaks of it here. And I'm looking back and forth. Probably say that a million times. But it's the thing that we forget to do. We just get into our little zone and then we zone out. Back up, look at what I'm doing. Come forward, put a little bit more in. Back up, look what I'm doing. Come forward, put a little bit more in. I want to bring some of it up here and bring it down into here. And thinking about that shape. Also thinking about the fact that it is covering the nose. So I want to get some of it in to cover the beak. I guess it's not a nose, it's a beak. Which is a pretty strong beak. I watched an owl feed its young, and I think it was a rabbit, but it was in the nest already, and so she just popped in to feed them at sort of early evening, and so I've got these amazing photos of her feeding them, and just tearing the flesh. It was definitely something larger than a rodent. And the little ones sort of looking very sweet as they were like, feed me, feed me. Okay, what do you think? Are we there? I think I'm feeling like we're there. I think I've taken the hair a little too far, so I'm just going to take a clean brush and just take that paint and soften it a little bit. I think that's better, yeah. And it will look better once I get the other side done too. Okay, so I'm seeing that. It's a little darker in behind here. Let's get that shape in there, darker than that. So you can't always tell what the value is when you're picking it up with your paintbrush until you put it right onto where you're working. And then all of a sudden you can see that value and compare it to what's happening next to it. Okay. Just keep on working. Okay, I need some more of that light to come up here. Radiating, and the eyebrows radiate this way, and then they come and then they start to move this direction. Okay. And they move to the center here, and then they move down. Okay, so now I'm just going to move along here, and I'm seeing different shapes There's a dark shape there. And then a slightly lighter value here, but not so light that it won't stand out. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to move up a little bit, and I'm kind of just going to come into these areas and get their value sort of corrected. So yesterday I met Larry Alkin, who's a local fellow here, and he likes to go and take pictures of birds. And he was telling me where he saw the pileated woodpecker out at Yellowknife River, and where the nest is. But the nest is where the ospreys are, and when you go in, the ospreys get very agitated. You know, they're trying to sit on their nest, and it's a stressful thing to have a humans go. So I just kind of not sure. I wish we had a bird blind out there. So when I was in Australia in 2018, we were visiting our oldest son. I went on a couple of birding days, and one of them we saw ospreys, and they were the exact same bird as we have in Yellowknife, which I found quite fascinating. It was like, oh, I have those at home. They're beautiful birds. I haven't been able to catch them. Ooh, way too much paint and way too dark. I haven't been able to catch them fishing yet. I would love to catch them fishing, but they're doing it at a place where I just have to be at the right place at the right time, and I haven't been there yet. Someday. Okay. Creating that shape, coming back and forth. Always looking at what I'm seeing and using the two brushes. Okay. Well, that needs to be even darker, so we'll just darken that up and then come and lighten it a bit. Yeah, that's better. And then we have okay, I'm coming in here and oops, darker yet. Okay. Oh, I'm really happy with how that eye is coming. I'm really pleased with that. So let's get this darker in here, and then it comes down, and then it goes up. I don't want it that dark there, but it's this little value dance that we're doing is when you're working, what I've discovered when you're working with birds, I mean, other than tropical birds, but when you're working with the birds that I've been working with so far, their plumage, especially owls, are very low chroma. Yes, it looks like it's a low chroma orange. I actually start with what did I start with when I built these? It doesn't say on the tube. I made these colors quite a while ago when I was painting, and if you signed up for my newsletter, you would see the picture. If you go to my website, it's called Liftoff. It was the largest owl painting I've done. It was 40 inches by 40 inches, or just over 100 centimeters square, 100 centimeter on its sides, and it was a big deal. That was that first owl that I ever encountered, and it took me 2 years to feel like I was actually far enough along in my understanding to start to actually be able to paint it, because it was an image that I always felt right from the start needed to be painted large. I captured the bird with its talons still on the rocks and its wings spread out. And it's in a collection here in Yellowknife. I actually had brought it home and from the gallery, and then I got a message saying, "Oh, I love that painting." So there it went to a new home, and yes. And it always makes me happy when my paintings find loving homes. Okay, I want to bring in some of that featheriness here just by doing this. And this small brush, it's a nice liner, and so it's perfect for thin lines. And I'm just softening it with my Princeton Dakota so that it's not just lines of paint, that it has some, just softens it out. Just touch it, touch, move the paint around. So is there any new flowers blooming? I think the next painting I'm going to do is going to be a watercolor. I've finally sort of sorted out how I would deal with that in my studio when I'm ready to live stream, because I paint both in acrylic and in watercolor, mostly in acrylic, but I do like my flowers. They make me happy. Makes me feel like I'm painting summer sunshine. And when you live in a place that's in the subarctic, painting summer sunshine, it's a good thing. Especially when it's 45 below outside or colder. Oh yeah, okay. And I see this shape here needs a little bit more light. Take that Princeton Dakota and just soften it and pull that. Yeah. And at this point now, I'm really going back and forth. There are people who sit to paint, and I can appreciate that that might be, you know, some people, you don't have a choice and you like to sit and paint. People can sit and paint and it works. I stand to paint because I need to move back more often. Well, I think I'm going to say that we're going to bring this to a close here, because we only have just over a minute left. And so let me just seal up what I'm working on and turn on that other camera. Okay. Let's see where we're at here. Here we are. So we've gotten a little further today. You know, it's just going to be more of the same. I'm just going to be doing this little to create the feathers looking out. What I think I'll do is I will finish this whole area. And if there's some area here, I'll leave a little bit for next week here. And then we'll work on this little bit of area, and we'll finalize the rest of the bird so that we can see it nearly completed. Tonight, I will be putting on the ptarmigan onto auction. I think I've got all the information, so I'm trying to get it done for tonight. And thank you for coming and watching, and it's always a joy to share my knowledge with other artists and other people who just like to watch people paint. Anyway, have a good week. We'll see you next Thursday. Bye.